Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. I'm Dale Corpus, a senior transition specialist and real estate expert based in the San Francisco Bay Area and also a proud member of the Sandwich Generation. I created this podcast to help families navigate the emotional, logistical, and financial journey of senior living and caregiving with less stress and more clarity. Each week, I sit down with experts who serve aging adults and their families, from placement agents and fiduciaries to downsizing pros, hospice providers, and more. Whether you're helping a loved one transition into care or planning ahead for yourself, you're in the right place. Today's episode explores a topic that many families avoid but absolutely need to understand: funeral planning. My guest is Jacqueline Scoggins, also known as Jackie, an independent funeral planning consultant and the founder of Serenity Funeral Planning Consultants. With a background in helping families prepare for life's most difficult transitions, Jacqueline brings both compassion and practical wisdom to the table. Unlike traditional pre-need planners who work for specific funeral homes, Jacqueline advocates independently for her clients, making sure their wishes are honored, their budget is respected, and their family is supported every step of the way. She's passionate about demystifying the often taboo topic and helping people plan ahead to reduce stress during a time of grief. Today, we're covering everything from the difference between pre-planning and at-need services to how family dynamics, culture, and finances all play a role in end-of-life decision-making. If you've ever wondered how to start that conversation with your loved one or what your options really are, this episode is for you. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we're back, everyone. Jackie, welcome to the show today. I'm so happy to have you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dale. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be on your show. I
Oh,
really
you're very, very welcome.
thank you.
I saw you speak in person not that long ago over an event in San Ramon, and I was just inspired just by what you had to say and your awesome personality. So I had to bring you on.
Thank
So here
you.
we are.
Thank you.
So can you just start by telling us how you got into the funeral planning space?
So it is very interesting. My background truly and honestly is in IT. I have a
Okay.
degree in computer science and a minor in math. I spent 30 years plus in high performance computing. In 2008, I lost my uncle. And I remember going to an arrangement room, and I had never been to a funeral planning meeting ever in my life. That meeting was very salesy type to
Yeah.
me. My aunt just lost her husband unexpectedly. I was there supporting my cousin and my aunt. And just listening to that conversation, it just made me feel very uncomfortable. Because
Mm.
like I said, I've never done it before. But all the questions they were asking, all the sales stuff that they were trying to tell us we needed to get. And it was just a lot. And I thought, wow, is this what planning's about? And I never forgot that day. And so remember, that was 2008. 2009, I lost 5 family members: my great aunt, my grandfather, my sister, my older sister, my niece, and my cousin. And the latter 3 were all under 50, and they were all within 2 weeks apart. When I was attending one service, the other one was passing. So I went to her, my sister. When I was there, I watched her pass. While we were coming back to get the family, my cousin had passed away, one of my cousin's cousins. And I just remembered that. And I was kind of like in a big grieving moment without realizing what grief was.
Yeah.
I was really grieving because I just lost my uncle in 2008. Here it was now my sister, my grandfather, and then these niece and my cousins. And so just hearing and feeling that feeling, I just started becoming really busy, being
Yeah.
mind-wise. I was working, so I was doing some extra stuff on the side and trying to do just a lot to keep myself busy. 3 kids, a husband, busy, busy, busy. I met a gentleman who worked at a cemetery, and he saw me at a function doing event planning. and my sister and I was doing some event planning work, and he asked me if I wanted to work at a cemetery and do advanced planning. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "I think you'll be good at it." So I took the job,
Yeah.
trying to stay busy. But I found that it was really interesting to help people. I did seminars, I talked to people, I called people. But one of the things I found out what people were feeling was no one told me this. I didn't know when I would go over their plan and tell them what they needed to buy the rest of the stuff to make it a complete package. No one told me that. All I was told was I had to buy that. I got a lot of that, and it was like, wow. So fast forward, I had to stop doing that because I was working full time and my grieving was still building up and I hadn't dealt with it. So I started dealing with that. Fast forward 2021, because of COVID, I was at home. We all were home,
Right.
working at home. And it dawned on me like, all these people are dying. How are these people going into these funeral homes? What are they being told? And I just prayed over it and I said, Lord, I just wanted to do something to help people. And I love my job. I just wanted to retire from it because it's been 25 years, same place.
Right.
I called the gentleman who hired me before. He gave me some references and referral to a funeral home cemetery close to me. And I did it for 3.5 years. But what I was finding, it was too much of a sales position. I'm not a salesperson. I don't like sales. I like communicating and educating. And so I prayed over that and I said, what can I do, Lord? And he led me into the direction of starting Serenity Funeral Planning Consultant. And that's how I got into this business.
Nice. I love that.
Thank you. Thank
Now, how does your work differ from someone who works for a funeral home directly?
I don't put the pressure on the sale. That's one. Number
Okay.
two, I get the same information and give you the same information that they would give you, but I'm doing it for you without making you have to make a decision on a sale. So what I'm doing is helping you put a package together so that you can walk into any funeral, walk into any cemetery and say, this is what I want. I also will work with the funeral home or the cemetery of your choice, or maybe some in the area you want. I'll get a quote for you to go over the quote with you because a lot of people don't understand what the terms are and they don't understand the terminology. So I'll go over that with you so that you have a very clear understanding before you actually go into there and make a decision. What I like to do is make sure people understand there is the basic and then there's the additionals. You can make choices when you're there. If you want to buy extra stuff, that's up to you and your family. How you want to honor your family is truly up to you. But I'm going to keep it real and give you real information so that you're not overspending and buying things that you don't need because someone else may want to make you buy something because they want to sell.
Okay. Where geographically can you help people? Can you only help people, for example, in the San Francisco Bay Area, or how does that work?
No, I will help you wherever. I am licensed in California. I have my business license in California. I'm in Alameda County for my business, but my business is open to anyone who needs help. And basically, if you're calling me from out of state, I will call around, find funeral homes that I could find somebody who knows someone in that area. And that's how I do it. It's really friends helping friends, calling people to refer you to someone who I know is going to help you, that will lead you in a direction that isn't going to take advantage of you, basically.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Now, let's segue into demystifying funeral planning. My first question here is,
Yeah.
for families who've never planned a funeral, what does a funeral planning consultant actually do?
So first of all, we're going to talk about what are the desires or what are the things that you want. So I'm going to ask some questions, like what type of services that you may want. And I will go over what the different services are. I will give them some information to give them clarity so that they have a good understanding the difference between a traditional burial or a cremation. Are there other options of cemetery type of services? Or there's different types of funeral types of services. I'll give them a clear picture of that. Someone who has never planned usually are afraid to talk to a funeral because they feel that they're going to either one, be taken into and made to talk about something they're not comfortable with because they lack sometimes understanding. Are there some emotional, feelings behind some past experiences? So I try to make them be a little comfortable
Yeah.
make it become more comfortable to have this conversation. Because really and truly, I'm not talking about dying. I know we're all going to have that happen to us. No one can say it's not going to ever happen. What
Right.
I'm really looking and trying to help families to understand is your loved one don't know you better than you know yourself.
Right.
If I can't write my own words about who I am, how do you think my family member will be able to do that for me? While they're just losing you, they now have to plan. And the planning process involves knowing like certain things to the point where what's the mother's maiden name of the person
Mhm.
who just passed? What's the father's name? Where are they from? What year were they born? There's
Mhm.
things that some kids don't even know, or some of the kids are the grandkids of the parent, grandparents. They don't have that information. I've heard stories of grandkids don't even know grandparents' full first name because they only knew her by the name that they called her.
Yeah.
And so when that comes to that time, there's paperwork they're looking for, trying to figure that out. And a lot of times it's a struggle. Now you're mourning and you're grieving and you're trying to put together a lot of information that's going to be needed to be presented to go and get a death certificate in
Right.
order to get the paperwork finalized. And you have to be authorized to
Right.
be able to plan a funeral for someone. It can't just be your friend if they have relatives. If you live with someone and they were your best friend and they live together in common law, whatever it may be, they can't plan a funeral if that person has children and they were never married. So there's a lot of legalities that are involved. So I just kind of make sure that families know how to better plan a big process. And I look at the before, making sure your paperwork is together, organized, the during, making sure you have all the information that you need, and the after contacting people to close counts, contacting things like social media, making sure they provide them with the passwords, making sure that, because you can't go on social media and say, or contact Facebook and say, this account needs to be closed because my mother passed. No, the HIPAA law doesn't allow that. So there's a lot of things that can be involved that we just need to make sure we're planning right.
Yeah, it sounds like you got everything all figured out. You know all the things that people are not even thinking about. I want to call you like a funeral planning concierge service in some,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, what's the difference between pre-need and at-need funeral planning?
I'm glad you asked. A pre-need is you're doing something to plan in advance, right? There's no death that has occurred. It's something that I'm looking at planning in advance. And a lot of cemeteries and funeral homes allow you to buy their services in
Hmm.
advance so that you can purchase funeral planning plans in advance. You can purchase cemetery property in advance. No one
Yeah.
has died. And a lot of those pre-needs, I'll be honest with you, they come with a kind of a perk. You're going to get them at the price you see today. You're going to possibly save money because sometimes they do give discounts. It
Okay.
just depends on what's available. So when you do pre-planning, and you also have time to pay it off over time. So some of them do 3 years, some do 4 years, some do 5 years. So they allow you to pay it off during a particular period of time, right? That's pre-need. So I'm planning for something in advance, and I'm also able to pay for what I'm going to use. At need, someone has passed away.
Okay.
There is an immediate process that has to happen. You now have to make a plan if you don't have one. And I forgot to say in pre-need too, you get to shop around, you get to look around, you get to get more of a bigger picture of what's available, and you can make choices. Where when it's an at need, you're probably going to limit, or they will probably limit how much you really see because of time. They know
Yeah.
you just lost someone, so they're going to look at possibly what your interests are, what kind of burial you want, or what kind of funeral service you're going to need. And then they will look at showing you all the packages that are available through that process. And then if you need cemetery property, you're going to have to go look at the property, see if this is something you're going to want. So now you're out shopping around on the gardens, let's say, for property, and then you go in and negotiate or find out what the pricing is. And at that time, there is no true discounts during an at-need situation. And with an at-need situation, a funeral is going to be planned. There's going to be a date coordinated, right? Within 72 hours of that funeral service, all funds are due. You have the funeral home funds and you have the cemetery funds. Even if they're on the same park, they're two different entities and they both have to be paid off in full. So the bill comes to you at once and it's a lump sum of a bill. That's the difference between pre-need and an at-need. And sometimes even at-needs, if they did a pre-need, if they haven't paid off their full balance, there may be a balance due, but it should be a lot lesser than it would have been if you walked in the door with an at-need situation.
Got it. What are the most common mistakes families make when planning a funeral without guidance?
I hate to say this because it's not really the nicest thing to say, but a lot of times because of lack of understanding, you take what they say as truth and you don't research a lot of times. I've had a family who told me that they have had a loved one pass and they walked in together and they sat down with an advisor, got a quote, but their family member was affiliated with a lot of funeral homes. When that person walked in, the prices sort of changed. Had they not been affiliated with that person, they probably would have went with that. I don't know if they were just given a discount because of his affiliation, but I do know there's certain things that sometimes we see on the contract. You should question before you sign it. Is this something I really want? And this is something I really need? And don't let people prey off of your emotions. I say this not to be mean or to say it incorrectly, but a lot of the things we end up buying or paying for, it may look nice, but it's a one-time thing. No one else will see it. And the person you're doing it for doesn't recognize it because they can't see it. So just be aware of if someone tries to weigh you into purchasing and buying extra stuff just to make you feel good or to make the process look good and it's a higher cost, be aware.
Yeah, I think people get taken advantage of because they're in an emotionally distraught state. So they might be thinking clearly or logically. I think when they're talking to somebody, they just want somebody to direct them. And I feel like sometimes people are just saying, yes, yes, yes. I just want this off my plate.
Yes.
Right? Now, related question then. So why is it so important to plan ahead, especially for seniors?
It's very important to plan ahead because let's ask this question. Who in your family have the funds to pay for the service that you want? A lot of times people may come in and if they didn't have plans, and let's say traditionally, most seniors want to be buried full body. A lot of people steer away from cremation. As the seniors of this age, younger ones were more okay with cremation. But let's just say that was something your heart desired was to be full body buried. Now the kids come in and they try to make plans and they find the price between a traditional and a cremation is about half. Let's be honest. And a cremation doesn't require a cemetery. So that's even more so, more money that you're going to save. They can bring you home. They can make plans for the placement later. They may decide to do a cremation. And a senior who had adamant about being cremated, that may be something you can't change because you're not here. But it could weigh on the kids also. You know, that guilt, that feeling of I wish I could have, but I just really couldn't afford it. If you plan it out and you share your information with your family, you make preparations for the funding. You help the family know what you want by writing out your wishes. That's the steps that I like to take. You don't have to walk into a funeral home and pay for it right away. You can just have the plans written, have the funds available, or at least show the family where the funds are and making sure they have access to everything that they need to plan this funeral. I think you'll be okay. But if you don't ever talk about it because you think it's taboo or you think that just talking about it's going to make you die, I really wish I had that kind of power to talk about something and make it happen. Because otherwise I say, I want to be in a big house. I want to be rich. I want to drive this car. I want to be on a plane. Just if I can speak it out and it comes true, I have a lot of power. That doesn't happen. We don't have control. No one knows the time or day. We just have to know it's going to happen. So plan. That's it. Just plan.
Okay. Jackie, one of the things that I forgot to mention in the introduction is that you are a published author as well.
Yes.
And you have a book related to funeral planning. I know your book is entitled Empowered Funeral Planning, a practical guide to funeral planning without pressure. What
Yes.
inspired you to write it?
When I started my business, I started looking for how to put my business together. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this become a real live business? Because no one really does what I do, basically. They either work for a company, an insurance agent selling insurance, or they're a pre-need planner for a company. I didn't want to be tied to anything. So because I was doing my research, I was finding information here, I was
Yeah.
finding information there. And I'm like, how could a person who wants to plan and do it right gets this information in one location? So I started writing. And as I started writing, starting putting it together, because I wanted the perspective of you walking into a funeral home and someone talking to you and not you planning a funeral, like how to write obituaries, how to do, I didn't want to write that because everybody has that information. What I wanted to do was give you the rights that you have, the terminology that they use, and understanding what you're paying for. So that way it was very clear and it was in one document. So that's where my book was inspired to do because I want to have my voice out in other people's ears and eyes and in their brain. Even if I can't be there, I figured the book would be able to spread the word.
Excellent. Now, can you share a favorite tip or takeaway from the book that you think every family should hear?
One of the things that I wanted to share with you for a tip, do not be afraid to talk about this subject.
Okay.
The second one, planning is for your family, not for you, because you are not going to be there to answer the questions they're going to be needing. So if
Okay.
you write it out, you're helping your family plan because a funeral for the loved ones that are left behind.
Okay.
And the more that you help them, it's like an act of love.
Yeah.
I'm leaving you with advice without me being here so you can read what I want you to know. And that makes a person very comfortable. I've heard so many people say when their parents planned for their services or they had it written out, the transaction of the process was so much smoother for them that they were able to grieve without having a lot of extra stress. And sometimes overwhelmness can cause depression and anxiety. People don't know how to go through grieving, and grieving is real and it hits you at different times. So we just plan and be able to be comfortable to talk about it. And I show people ways of how to talk about it. Start small. When you're talking to someone, you don't have to say, what do you want for your funeral? No, you ask questions that can help them write the obituary, like, what was your favorite music? Just having some fun conversations. I usually tell people even to draw a vision board. Draw a
Yeah.
vision board. That tells me about your life. Do a vision board about your life in the past and what you like the best, especially for people that have gone through centuries. It's good to have story time just to sit down because they like to tell their story.
Yeah.
But we just have to listen. And don't be afraid to listen. You don't have to go through the details of what you're planning. Just ask them questions. And it makes a difference. And I wrote that in the book. That conversation can be easy if you make it easy.
Okay. What one myth or misconception about funeral planning that you try to debunk in the book?
One of the things that I try to let everyone know is two things. You do not have to purchase your casket from a funeral home. You do not have to buy cemetery property from a cemetery. So just because they say they offer all these services, you also can shop around and
Okay.
get those things outside that earn in the casket. Generally, a funeral home, basic services, the way they care for the body, that's across the board. Everybody has to do that because there are certain standards
Yeah.
that they have to do. But as far as the merchandise that you're purchasing, the marker from the cemetery, you don't have to buy it from a cemetery. There are things that you can get outside at a lower cost. So funerals don't have to be as expensive as you see from the general price list. What you can do is talk to the funeral home and see what their rules are for receiving a casket and
Okay.
make sure you're there. So the cost can not be as expensive if you plan it in advance and know how to plan.
Okay.
As far as the casket purchases, you don't want to buy it before the services is going to happen. So you usually buy that around the at need, and they won't sell you a casket pretty much in advance. So you just have to know what you're buying and what you want to get. So my myth of the costs are, I can't plan because if I write it out, I'm going to die. All that's not true. You're just doing this to make sure your loved ones have the information they need to carry through the process of planning a funeral.
Okay. So I've never shopped around for a casket, but I want to get some clarification. So if I were to find a casket on Amazon.com, I don't even know if they sell it there.
You-
I could have that shipped to the funeral home and use that instead of buying one from the funeral home.
Right? That's correct.
Oh, wow.
And you can
Uh,
also buy them from Costco. Let's be real. Costco sell them too. And I'm gonna be honest that the only thing is that I always tell my families, if you're purchasing it, it is your property, right? Your item. Be
yes.
there when it arrives so that there's no damages because a funeral home can deny the package if it comes damaged or it doesn't meet the qualifications for the type of services or type of product it is. So it has to be able to close correctly and, the right gauge is there. So always do your research and just ask the person that you're coordinating with, hey, I found this casket on blah, blah. This is the type. And you can also get their casket details from them. Say, what kind of caskets do you
Mm.
offer? And let me get the details. And you have the paper. So now you know the kind, the type, what size it is, what everything is involved. But when you get it on Costco, make sure you read the details so you know that the product is the same as that they would use.
Got it.
Because
Got
there's
it.
really a few casket distribution centers, just be honest. So pretty much everybody's getting them from the same place. Just pricing are different.
Okay. Switching topics a little bit. How do family dynamics come into play when multiple people are involved in making funeral decisions?
Multiple people are involved when there is no plan. And I
Mm,
say that because if you do a contract with the funeral home, they're going to always ask you who are the next of kin,
okay.
and there's going to be one person listed. That is the only person that they really will conversate with. But the
Okay.
family can be in the arrangement room, yes, but the final decision is from the one person that I put down as my next of kin on my contract. Because I pre-planned, my next of kin gets to do that. If I didn't pre-plan, that's like now the family has to decide who's going to be the one, especially if there's no spouse. Sometimes families allow the oldest child to do it, but then there could be conflicts with that. There have been so many different situations between families when it's such a larger family and they don't agree. Here's a prime example. A family can come in and they want to do cremation.
Okay.
With the cremation, there's a form that has to be filled out, and everybody has to agree. So all the siblings have to sign the form.
Okay.
One of them contests it. This can hold up everything because now there has to be some conversation, and I don't know if there's some legal terms that have to happen
Yeah.
or not, but there can be a holdup from actual services being rendered, which can also increase costs because of time spent at the funeral home in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Well, the family has to pay those funds. So every day that you're procrastinating or prolonging the arrangements to occur, you're incurring more costs. So there's just certain things that's why you want to get a lot of this out the way, or if there's a power of attorney created, then people do have authority to make the decisions. But if there is nothing in place, and the family are already bickering and not talking to one another, that could pose a problem. Honestly, it can pose a problem. So to avoid all of that, just write it down. They can't say mom didn't say this or dad didn't say that. I have proof. Here's the handwritten paper. Here's
Right.
the paper that they said they wanted. And just take that with you to the funeral.
Right. How does culture or religion influence the planning process, and how do you support that?
I deal with a family for whatever their needs are. I don't have any kind of judgment on what it is that you're asking. I just want to make sure that the funeral home offers that service for you.
Yeah.
It to me, it doesn't bother me what your beliefs are. What I do want to make sure is that I support you. And my support is to make sure you're getting adequate information and that you're getting the information you need to make the plan happen. So
Okay.
I mean, there are people who just want cremation. They have to do it within 3 days at some cultures, and they go do cremation within the 3 days of the death, and that's it. There are some cultures that want a bottomless casket so that they are more near the ground. That way they don't have a full body casket. They offer that at cemeteries. So you just have, and funeral homes offer that, I should say. So you just have to know what kind of grounds they have and what kind of caskets that they offer. It's just whatever the religion, respect it, whatever it is.
Now, I love hearing stories, success stories from my guests. I
Okay.
feel like they paint a great picture of things that, that you do that we might not even know that you do. Are you able to share us a story about a family you helped where planning ahead really made a difference?
Yes. I'm not naming names,
Yeah.
but I do want to say that a friend called and it was a family member who had got a diagnosis that wasn't great. And he reached out to me and I gave him contact information. I didn't realize he was going to go that quick, but he went like the next
Mhm.
day
Wow.
and he really got a good deal. He couldn't believe the deal he received. So he called me up and goes, "Is this real?" And I said, "If the man said it, it's real. And if he gave you this, this is real." I said, "What you got is the real deal." I didn't know it, but I think about a week later, his mom passed. And I didn't know it happened, but the gentleman who helped him sent me a text and said, "I just helped your friend. His mom had her services yesterday." And I was like, wow, I didn't realize it was going that quickly.
Right.
But I know from my heart that he's okay because I know he had procrastinated for like 2 years on
Yeah.
trying to do the planning. And because it was like, I don't know, I'm not ready. But this one I think made him, I believe, and I had a conversation with him in text messages because I know he's still grieving. Um, that, that was a blessing. That was a blessing for him and his family, but it was not expected to happen so quickly. I've had families who have had passings who were planning to plan and they didn't know what to do. And I've had them appreciate that. I've also gone to arrangement meetings with families who didn't know what to do. And
Yeah.
we had conversations and we kick people out the room that are the salespeople and we have conversations. And I always make sure they understand what they're doing. And if you want to get more, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I'm not going to discourage anybody, but I do want to make sure I tell them the truth. And so that they know, okay, yeah, I want to get this or that, but they have been appreciative that I helped them along the way. So for me, that's the gratitude that I feel that this is the blessing that God placed me here for a reason. And that was to help people in their time of need before it happens, giving them the clarity, the understanding before it happens so they can sit down and have that conversation with their loved ones. And I feel like a lot of people that I've been helping has given me that feedback. This has been helpful. Had I not talked to you, I probably would have never done it. 76% of people say they want a plan.
Yeah.
Only 21% actually do. And I want to boost that number from 21 to higher so that we can have more than 21% of people actually plan. And a plan doesn't mean you go to pay for it. The only way I tell you to pay for it, if you want to lock in the prices. If you want to pay today's prices, go pay for it. If you don't mind an increase of 2% to 5% on funeral every year or 50% of the
Yeah.
price of cemetery every 10 years, then go for it. But at least you know what you're going to be paying.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I
that's
mean, there's that saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This is a perfect example of it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what are some ways families can personalize services to reflect values and personality of their loved one?
Oh, I love that question. When I talk to families, I do ask specific questions because I want to make sure we're not just writing out, oh, I want a traditional. No, I
Yeah.
want to know what kind of things you want at your services. So I tell them to write that out too. And one lady, she told me once she wanted bagpipes. So I was like, we got to write that down. So I don't know where the bagpipe people may be during that time, but there are funerals today that have bagpipes as a services. So you just have to know who to call, but just write it out. Tell your kids, find bagpipe people to come to the services because you want that at your service. So those types of things I like to do. And then if someone wants a certain wording on their marker or tombstone, write
Yeah.
it down. Because the family don't need to guess everything. Just write it down. They just have to read instructions. That's it. And that way you giving them the information that they need. Yeah, whatever you want. Somebody may want praise dancers at their services. I did that. We did that for my grandmother. My kids and her great grandkids praise dance at her funeral service. And
Yeah.
she wrote out what she wanted before she passed. She even wrote it to the point where she told us who she wanted to sing and what song. Luckily, the lady was still alive and she agreed and she did it. Everything went smooth for my grandmother's services because, like I said, in 2008, her son passed away and he passed away actually in front of her in her house with my grandfather. And they thought he was playing because he was a jokester. But no,
Yeah.
really, he had a heart attack in front of them and they rushed him to the hospital and they pronounced him dead at the hospital. But I will say that when that happened, she started writing out her plan, and we didn't find the paper until later when we moved her, and I was reading it to my mom. I said, Grandma, she wrote out her own obituary. She wrote out her own program. She said
Wow.
who she wanted to talk. So we followed all of that, and you know what? I'll be honest. I made those arrangements with my mother. That was actually done very well because we had previously had experience doing it for my grandfather a few, like 7 years before. But her plan was just on point. Everybody was okay. We knew Grandmommy was okay.
People often worry about funeral costs. I mean, I've heard from multiple people that have arranged funerals that they paid $30,000 plus. I mean, what can families expect and how can they plan for it?
Two things. So the pre-planning works better because you can buy your funeral services in advance, pay for it, and you pay it off. You can buy cemetery property in portions, but your first thing you're going to buy is the property, so the plot, right?
Oh,
But
okay.
you don't have to purchase the opening and closing, the vault if you need a vault, or the marker at that time because it's a pre-need. So you
Uh-huh.
schedule it over time to pay. But if you wait until the day it happens and now you have to do it because it's at need,
Hmm.
it really just depends. Most people, if spouse, a surviving spouse, they're going to end up trying to do a double death versus a single plot because they get two rights. So
Yeah.
they're paying for theirs in advance, although they're paying for at that need for the person who passed, but they're
Mhm.
paying for theirs in advance. So yeah, they're going to pay it up front, but they're covering the cost for themselves in the future. As far as the funeral, it depends on the type of service you get. But the main thing I will say this, it is the cost of the casket that will up the price. So if you do what I said, shop around, you do your research, you find that same casket on Costco. I had a young lady when I worked for the funeral home. She found that same casket that they were selling for like 3,500, I would say, approximately about that much.
Yeah.
You got it for like nine something. I said, well, go get it.
Mm.
I just had to find out what the rules were. I told her, well, if you need to get it because that makes more sense to me. And so, like I said, I wasn't a salesperson. I'm going to be honest with people, and I've always have been. But you just want to make sure you do your research. You get with me and have me help you so that you don't come out of pocket with $30,000 unless you choose to do it.
Okay.
That's fine. If they have funds to do it and that's what they want to spend, I don't discourage you, but I do encourage you to be smart about your decisions, be wise about the choices, and understand that you do have other options if you have to.
Okay. Do you help families compare pricing and options between funeral homes?
I do.
Okay.
That's my report. When you come to me, I'm gonna give you at least three different funeral homes, pricing, the services, contact names. If you come to me, I'm gonna also give you cemetery, and I also go through the broker. So there's a cemetery broker here in California, and they're around the country. Every
Okay.
state pretty much have one. You can buy property for them probably at a portion cheaper than you would if you were paying for a full price at a cemetery. So you just have to know who to talk to. I call and I ask, do they have property in this garden? Sometimes I even just look it up online because they have it online and give the people the prices. compared to what they would pay if it was at the cemetery
Yeah.
because they get off a little bit better. The difference, though, when you buy it from a broker, it has someone else's name on the
Mm,
property. So you have to take over that deed. In order to do that, that transaction has to happen with the owner and you. So you just go to the cemetery once you've gotten property selected from the broker. Then you are in the hands of the cemetery to get the deed transferred to your name. And that process doesn't take long as long as everybody's cooperating because usually the family wants to get rid of the property that they no longer need. That's why
yeah.
the broker has it. So it's in their favor to come in to handle that. But yeah, the process is much quicker. If you wanted to buy it cheaper, go to
Okay.
the broker. I've had friends who did that. I had families I helped when I was working at the cemetery because they couldn't afford to buy what the prices were. So I
Right.
connected them up to the broker and they got a better deal. They got a property in the same area that their parents or their grandparents or family members were in. Because a lot of times gardens sell out.
Right.
So when you go to a broker, you may find the older properties that have already been purchased but not completely used available. So there are options. And so I just help families find anything that they need.
How do you help protect families from being pressured or upsold in their time of grief?
I will connect you with a counselor that I trust, an advisor. So either at need or pre-need is someone that I have worked with in the past. And if I haven't ever been to that funeral home and you're interested in it, I will go visit. I watch a lot of things. I don't tell people who I am a lot of times. I watch how you treat me as if I was a consumer. If someone's pushing me to make an appointment just to get a general price list,
Yeah.
I'm running. And I'm not being funny about that because I know you want to meet with me and talk with me, but you shouldn't pressure me. All I want is a price list so I can see what your prices are. I could take that home, review it, and then I can call you back and say, I want to meet with someone. That's my choice. But if you constantly tell me the only way I can get a price list is to make an appointment, that's not true. That's illegal. Federal Trade Commission says anyone asked about a funeral service, the funeral home is obligated to give them a general price list. In person or online does not matter. If I
Yeah.
ask you about a funeral, you're giving me a price list. I don't have to make an appointment to get that.
Right. Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on burial versus creation versus, yeah, or even versus alternative options like green funerals?
I don't know enough about the green, eco-friendly,
Okay.
eco-friendly funeral because when I worked at a funeral home, that was not a service that was offered. But I have seen there is aquamation and then there's the green burial where the full body gets put under a tree. I don't know enough about it, but if that's the way you want to roll, I'll just find some place that can do it for you. You
Yeah.
know, I can't make judgment on that because
Yeah.
I'm not a person who has gone to school to learn about how they take care of the body. The body preparation is left to the mortuary. And I think those are the people who should make those decisions. Do
Yeah.
your homework on what it is. I know green burial one is another way of some kind of chemical that decomposes supposed to be friendlier to the earth.
Yeah.
Cremation is cremation. It's been going on for many, many years. Everyone knows about that. They say that that somewhat is not environmentally friendly, and that's why the other ones were
Got it.
created. Traditional is just traditional. So I always just say pick your flavor, and I'll help you do whatever you want.
Okay. Jackie, I have a question because I don't know anybody that does what you do.
Yes.
So it's more so if I was a consumer, I was coming to you, how do you get paid? Do you charge like a consulting fee or is it by the hour or how does that work?
So I do charge a fee, and my fee is typically a minimum of 2 hours, and the
Yeah.
fee is for funeral planning, any kind of planning that I'm helping you with. So it's generally a set fee. I don't try to charge a lot. Honestly, I was really down charging myself, I should say, in the beginning, because I just wanted to help. I'm a helper. I love to help people. I want to make sure you succeed, and that helps me be happy in a sense, that's a people pleaser in a way. But I really do have to live off of this, right?
Yep.
And so I had to come up with fee. And so for one-on-one consultation, the first 30-minute one is free.
Got it.
I have to do research, which requires me to go quotes. And it is quotes that sometimes take a few minutes to get, a couple of days sometimes from the people, because I'm asking them to provide me with some information that they have to do research on or get a quote for. So I get quotes and then I put this all together to a package. I
Yeah.
make sure that that package is complete with what the services you're asking for, what are the basic outlines, services, itemized list, so they understand what that means. And then I give them a price comparison between the different locations.
Okay.
They're going to get a checklist from me that also covers things to be prepared before and the things you have to be prepared for after, so that if they need help with who to donate the furniture to because they have to downsize or clean out the house, there's movie companies, there's referrals. I also have referrals to people that can do the obituary printing, and if they want other things printed out, I can have them give referrals to that. So you're going to get a complete package from me that's
Perfect.
going to help you navigate this planning process. But then this is also something, it's going to be in a folder or binder so that you can put this away so that your family has one place to go look for all the information that will help you give them the information they need to plan.
Okay. Now, going back to the conversations aspect of pre-planning, I work with a lot of adult children, dealing with their parents and whatnot. What do you say to adult children who want to bring this up with a parent about pre-planning but feel awkward?
So, the one thing is if they just had a friend or a relative pass, mom or dad, this is something we never had a conversation about. But that was really touching. How did you feel about it? And, I really want to make sure I'm okay. Can you give me some ideas of what it is you may want? And I know this is not planning your death, it's just planning the process, because you saw they might have gone through some struggles, or this might have been very nice. Even in my book, I tell people, when you go to a funeral home and a family member has passed and someone elder is with you and they don't have any plan. What did you think about that service? Did you like this place? That give you an idea that they may be okay with having their services there, right?
Right.
That's sort of a conversation without saying, do you want your services here? No, you're
Yeah.
just asking them some questions, or just like I said earlier, try to get information about where they came from, what their parents name. Just play it in a game. My kids want
Right.
to know, are my children have to write a story about their favorite person in the world and you are it? So can you tell me some stuff about you? That's just writing down information so you can collect the data.
Yeah.
Be creative. Don't make it awkward. You don't have to make it so that they feel like you're trying to do something that they feel is taboo. Be respectful.
What's your advice for seniors who want to make their own arrangements but feel overwhelmed?
Call me. Fully and honestly, just take your time. Don't rush through it. Don't look at it as I'm planning my funeral. Now look
Yeah.
at it, I'm helping my children or my family members. Some of them don't even have a family member to help plan. And some people are by themselves and they want to make sure that they've written it down, or they have kids that they know can't handle it. We have kids that are on the spectrum who may not be able to do certain things for
Yeah.
the family. So you have to just be aware of overwhelming for you can be much more overwhelming for the person left behind doing it, because only you know your story. Only you know what legacy you want to leave behind and how you want your story to be told. Only you know what picture you want to be posted, right? Put that together. Like sometimes don't want all these pictures posted, because sometimes you go to funerals and you see all these pictures in these obituaries and you're like, I know they didn't want that posted. They in a robe or they don't have a shirt on. They showing their
Yeah.
belly. I know you might thought it was cute, but they may be like, I didn't want that to be posted. Put your stuff aside, families, make
Yeah.
it so that that book has everything you want. This is my front cover. These are the words I may want to say. If you have a poem you like, put it in there. This is what I want you to say at my funeral, or this is what I want in my obituary. But it's just giving them the idea of how you would like it to be done.
Okay. Now, what paperwork or prep should people start gathering before they meet with you, if any?
So I don't ask for them to gather paperwork unless they already had a plan and they want me to review it. What I do is I just ask questions. What type of services? What area? I do the footwork. I do the paperwork. If they have a family member who was a veteran, I ask, do they have these type of papers available so that they know that they need to gather that? So I will give you the information of what you need to get so that you're prepared before you go to the funeral home. I don't require you to have paperwork for me, but I make sure you get the paperwork you're going to need. So when you make that initial visit to the funeral home, you're prepared.
Yeah.
You have all the information.
What should a family look for when choosing a funeral home or a cremation provider?
Two things let's separate them. So the funeral home takes care of the body
Yeah.
and the funeral home offers the services. When you attend a funeral home, I used to do this all the time. I watch. I look at how the family's being ushered in. I watch it. I wrote this in my book. I watch how the family members are being treated during the services by the funeral home arrangers. Are they getting the tissues? Are they giving fans? Do they have the obituary in their hand? Are they scrambling to find things? Are they treating the family with respect because it is their day of their loved ones passing services? I watch all of that. And if it's at the funeral home or a church or wherever you decide to be, I watch that. So that's the actual arrangers. But
Hmm.
also, when I walk into a funeral home, I look and see how I'm being greeted.
Hmm.
Because that is the same experience your family who just lost you may experience. So you look at them from their reputation, you look at from the experience they have, you look at all of that and the services that they offer. And you want to go look at pricing because sometimes pricing can overwhelm people. You look and see if they offer alternatives, if they're open to those. So I look at all of that. That's one for me. The second thing with the cremation, for funeral homes that have crematories, I prefer them, to be honest,
Okay.
because the loved one never leaves their site. But for those that have to be transported out, make sure you understand what that turnaround time is, what the rules are, where they're going to go, how long they go for, and when they come back, and how they contact you for, when they come back, because you may be the one picking them up, or there may be a service coming up soon. But you just want to make sure you understand what the relationship is between the funeral home and the crematory, or if you go straight to the crematory, what are their rules? Are they licensed? What is their process? How long do you have to wait? What is their return time for the family member to be given back to you? Just make
Okay.
sure you understand all of that.
Okay. So we're pretty much wrapping up this conversation. What's your personal mission moving forward with your consulting and your book, and any final words?
Well, my mission is, like I said earlier, to make that 21% number higher, to let people know to just plan because a plan is just a decision about something in the future, right? It's not something that we know is going to happen, but we know we want to plan for it. We always plan for different things. This is the one thing you can never redo. You can renew your vows. You can have a wedding again. You can have another baby. You can do all this stuff, but this is the one event you can never redo. So do it right the first time. So that's basically what I would say. And, to contact me for consulting, just call me. I'll work with you. I treat everybody like they're my family. Even if I don't know you, you're still my family because we are brothers and sisters in some kind of way, right? In the human race, in the Christ way, however you want to do it religiously, just being humans, we're brothers and sisters. If we don't feed on each other, what are we there for if we're not
Yeah.
helping one another? So yeah, you can contact me directly. My phone is 510-507-8405, or you can visit my website, funeral planning, the number 4, the letter U.com. So it's funeral planning, the number 4, the letter U.com. Any way that you want to contact me, I'm open.
Perfect. Jackie, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your deep experience as an independent funeral planning consultant. You've helped bring so much clarity and heart to a topic most families find intimidating. Your
Mhm.
work truly empowers families to make informed, thoughtful choices during incredibly emotional times. And I know our listeners are walking away with knowledge they didn't have before. And for those of you watching, if your loved one is considering senior living and you need to figure out what to do with their home, let's talk. Schedule a free consultation with me by clicking on the Calendly link located in the video description box for this episode on YouTube. You can learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. Have a quick question, DM me on Instagram at Sold by Dale. And if you found this interview helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need this information. And please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as it helps families discover the show and get the support that they need. Thanks for tuning in. Jackie, one last thank you for being on the episode today.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Oh, and don't
welcome.
forget to get my book, Empowered Funeral Planning Consultants. Is on my website.
Yeah, don't forget to do that as well, everybody. And I'll see you all on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.